All right, man, peace. So, future NBA Hall of Famer LeBron James is, in my view, having his greatest individual season of his career. His proficiency levels are off the charts, and one can really tell that his mental has come together with his physical. And he'll probably be at this level for probably another season or two. Now, they had a game in Milwaukee where the Cleveland Cavaliers were down big, and they came back, but they were unable to get the victory. So Shannon Sharpe, Skip Bayless, and Rob Parker are going to converse about whether that game may hurt LeBron's chances to win this year's regular season NBA MVP award. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
LeBron and the Cavs lost in Milwaukee last night. He finished with 39 points, but the Cavs went on a 24-2 run with him on the bench in the fourth quarter. So far this season, LeBron is third in the league in scoring and second in assists. We're joined by Rob Parker. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, how are you?
The reporter.
Everybody.
How much?
Rob always looked like he just had a glass of Ciroc before he came into the studio. Like he just wake up in the morning and just drink some vodka.
How much of a case has LeBron made for MVP this season, Rob?
He's made a case, but I think that there are circumstances that when you take a look at it, his case isn't as strong as other guys in the league.
Well, if we're going to just factor in how LeBron has played, he's the MVP of the league so far. That's if we're just going to factor in how well he's played. His proficiency numbers, his scoring, his assisting, and his rebounding. He's been the best player in the NBA. Now, if we're going to look at who the NBA would like to win the MVP award, then it's going to go to James Harden. James Harden has, he can make a case that he's been shorted. I don't think he's been shorted. But he can make the case that he was last year, losing to Westbrook, and 2 years before that, losing to Curry. I personally have never bought into James Harden being shorted. I've always felt like he was a little bit overrated. But I do believe that he has taken a major step up this season thus far. And I do believe that he's focused on winning it. The thing is that LeBron James is also focused on winning the MVP award. Because I believe that LeBron understands that barring major injury, he's not going to win a championship. So it is going to be a very competitive NBA MVP race down the stretch.
Number one, he doesn't have Isaiah Thomas, which was supposed to be his numbers should be higher. His numbers should be better.
And, well, that's the exact reason why he deserves more credit for his proficiency. Because he has had to take on a greater load in regards to assisting and scoring. So the fact that his shooting percentage is so high, that should be acknowledged. Now, we know in this era, it is easier to get to the basket and score at the basket because there's no big waiting for you anymore. And that's the reason why LeBron James's shooting percentages are much higher now than they were back in the 2000s. Because back in the 2000s, there was a big man waiting for him at the rim. So back then, he was a high 40s shooter as far as percentile. Now he's high 50s.
Because he has to take on more without having that number two guy who was there, who used to be Kyrie, right? So LeBron. So I give him that. And also, we know this, Michael Jordan, there were years. What years didn't he deserve to be MVP? He plays at such a certain level, Shannon. You expect things from LeBron. It's not earth-shattering. But when you see, to me, if I were to do my order right now, it would be Kyrie 1,
Really?
James Harden 2,
Whoa!
and LeBron James 3.
You have seen.
Well, my order right now would be James Harden 1, LeBron James 2, and probably Kyrie 3. I had Antetokounmpo possibly at 3 before that, just because of the numbers that he was putting up. But I'll probably have to switch them for now. With KD bringing up the rear at number 5. But Rob Parker, he's such a moron. He just comes in to get a reaction. I got Kyrie 1.
Seen the light.
Those would be my choices.
Stop it. Wow.
And come on, and Shannon, just be honest. You were up here, and everybody else, all these NBA analysts and former players, Kyrie doesn't know what he's doing. How could you leave the king?
Well, and I commented on this when that first occurred. That is part of the liberal sports media bent. There are certain personages in sports that they choose to have their back or to to sponsor, to support at all costs. LeBron is one of them, particularly since he came back to Cleveland. That was kind of a narrative. After LeBron left Cleveland the first time, it was almost like a slave that ran away from home. They were very upset with him for his years in Miami. And then he came back to Cleveland, and the media has pretty much had open arms for him as far as welcoming him, supporting him in all of his programs that he's put forth, whether they're educational or ideological, through his corporate sponsors like Nike. They've always supported LeBron James heavily since he came back to Cleveland. So it was not a surprise when Kyrie chose to leave Cleveland behind and leave LeBron behind that they were going to castigate Kyrie. And also, Kyrie showed that he was his own man. And they did not like that. So.
You better, you know what? Don't you might be disappointed in trying to leave a guy like that, the best player on the planet, and then go out on your own and see what you do. And you know what he went out and did? He went out, lost Hayward in the first game, and the Celtics are good. And he's a big
2.5 games ahead of the Cavs.
Not just good, they're very good. And beyond that, people should congratulate Kyrie. They should congratulate anyone who dares to be great, who dares to bet on themselves. And, that's why that's a constant theme on this channel. You're never going to fully know who you are until you push yourself to your limit and try to figure out what it is that you love to do and to perfect that to the greatest extent that you can. And that's all life is about. That's what life is for. If you're not doing that, then you're wasting your own time. Don't waste time begging other people to like you, particularly the so-called white man and woman. All the time that you waste doing that, you could be spending trying to advance yourself.
Big part and a big reason of that.
Wow.
And the other part is...
So he went to the team that was in the NBA Eastern Conference Final last year.
No. But that guy who was on that team who had a breakout year wasn't on that team anymore.
Exactly. He had to replace him. And so far, not only has he replaced Isaiah Thomas, he has superseded what Isaiah Thomas was bringing to them last year. Even though Isaiah Thomas was a greater scorer than Kyrie as far as the numbers are concerned, I don't think that anyone would dispute that Kyrie is the better player. Kyrie is the better defender, the better passer, the better shooter, and the better scorer, even though he has not put up the numbers that Isaiah Thomas put up last year thus far. So far. We'll see how the season goes. Kyrie kind of got off to a slow start. I think he was a little jittery at first, especially after Hayward went down. But he's rebounded, particularly in like the last 20 games or so. His shooting percentages have gone way up. It's now customary for him to shoot over 50% for the game. And I think he's only going to get better as the season goes along, barring injury.
Yeah. So when Kyrie took over that team, it wasn't automatic they were going to do what they did.
They were in
that was not the plan.
It wasn't the plan because the Celtics weren't on his list.
But you got to admit that Kyrie has made the most, when I look at MVP, the most impact, he's impacted that team by far more than anything. Don't forget, this is the same LeBron James and the numbers that he's put up when they lost to the Knicks and the Nets back-to-back. And remember, they were bad to start the season, even with LeBron on them the first 15 or 13 games. So when I look at it, and James Harden, we know what he can do. Same thing. Great numbers, 31 points, NBA best. But I'm telling you, Kyrie's impact, when I think of MVP, would be Kyrie first, James Harden second, LeBron James third.
Let me say this. I believe that Kyrie's going to get some first place votes at the end of the season, particularly if Boston has the best record in the East and he's played the vast majority of the games, at least 75 games or more. I believe that Kyrie is going to get a lot of consideration for the MVP award. But people have to understand something. The NBA is a business enterprise. So even though we all know that LeBron is the best player, as his career advances, he has to have greater and greater seasons and greater impact in order to get the MVP award. Because LeBron James kind of came at the half beat of the NBA generations. And what I mean by that is when you look at Michael Jordan, Jordan came in with a generation of players, that being the John Stockton, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley generation, that by the mid-90s, he really did not have much real competition for who was going to win the MVP. Now, when Hakeem Olajuwon came into his fullness as a player, Michael Jordan was actually retired. when Charles Barkley beat him for the MVP in 93, I had no problem with Charles Barkley getting the award because of the impact that he had on the Phoenix Suns, even though people understood that Michael was the best player in the NBA. In 97, when Karl Malone got the MVP, I really couldn't say that I had a problem with it, because even though Jordan scored more points per game that season and his team won more games, Karl Malone had a higher PER, and Jordan actually had dialed it down the last 2 months of the season to where he allowed Karl Malone to catch him. And I think that Jordan, in retrospect, realized that he probably dialed it down a little bit too much, because at one point that season in 97, he was averaging like 31 a game on about 50% from the field, and he started to dial it down. He was not quite as intense in during the games, and that allowed Karl Malone to make up a lot of leeway. Point being is this: LeBron James came in at a half beat as far as the NBA generations. He came in halfway in between the Kobe, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Allen Iverson, T-Mac generation, and then the generation that you have now, the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Steph Curry generation. He was halfway in between those two generations. He came in on the half beat with Carmelo and D Wade and Chris Bosh, and I guess you can kind of throw Dwight Howard and what's his name, CP3 in there as well. So point being is this: the NBA is busy trying to market this generation of players. They have to market Steph Curry. They have to market James Harden. They have to market Russell Westbrook, because they're going to be the ones that carry the league into the future as the current superstar level players, quote unquote superstar level players. So LeBron is still the best, but the league is thinking about the future, and they have to sell the league as an entertainment enterprise that has an assortment of high level commodities. It's like if you run, let's say you run a hardware store, you might sell the best hammers in all of the hardware industry, but when people come into your store, you're also going to try to market your wrenches and your screwdrivers and your pliers, etc. Same thing with the NBA. They know that LeBron is the best, but if other players are having great seasons, they're going to be rewarded. So they have to promote the Steph Currys. They have to promote the Russell Westbrooks, the Kawhi Leonards, the Kevin Durants, etc. And many of those players have been able to come up with seasons where they actually can prove and validate and quantify that they should be considered for the MVP. The year that Curry won it in 2016, that was a historically great season that he had. He deserved it. The year that Kevin Durant won it, he had a higher PER than LeBron in 2014. So he definitely deserved it. But LeBron is still the best. I mean, that pretty much is unassailable. Durant is close, but LeBron is still the best.
I got LeBron and Harden at the top. I think what's going to hurt Harden is that with CP3, they're 15-0.
Well, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping that he'll be penalized due to CP3. But as Rob Parker has already stated, what's going to hurt LeBron is when Isaiah Thomas comes back.
That hurts his case, because what would this team look like now? Would they have a what? I think they're 22-4. Would they have or 25-4?
25-4, yeah.
Would they be that? Probably not. But they'll take LeBron off the Cavaliers, and as they're currently constructed, they're worse than the Nets.
That's not
You,
fair.
hold on. Now I gave you a chance. You're gonna get it.
Rob Parker, shut the fuck up. Right now I'm talking. Okay? I heard you talk all your shit about my baby. Don't make me slap the shit out your ass. I'm already mad as hell. Talk about he's fourth. Kiss my ass.
Give you a chance to wrap the skip. You get your chance to repeat what I'm saying. Take Kyrie, because Kyrie's missed a couple of games, and they've won. So if you take Kyrie, this is still a very good team. This team had a better record than the Cleveland Cavaliers last year with Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love.
Well, here's the problem with some of the things that Shannon is saying, and I've stated this already. With LeBron, yes, when he's out, his teams are going to struggle because every team that he's on runs the same system, that being the LeBron system. In Boston, they actually run a team system. In San Antonio, they run a team system. So when their great players are out, the supplementary players are trained to view themselves as the lead player when the lead player is out. In other words, they're all trained to run interchangeably. In Cleveland, they're not trained that way. They're basically just trained to look at LeBron and stand in the corner. That's their offense. That's what they do. So that's why in the regular season, they're relatively good. No, they're going to win low to mid-50s, but they're not going to be a high 60-win team. They're going to go to the playoffs, and LeBron's going to run a roughshod over most of these weaker teams, and then they're going to get to the finals, and they're going to lose. And that's because they do the same thing every year. And as I've stated, LeBron is a plan A player. He does not know how to play in a system that does not cater totally to him. So that's why when Shannon tries to prove LeBron's worth by juxtaposing it with how well other teams play when their best player's out, you can't do that, because you can only prove something like that if every team ran the same system, all predicated around dictating to the whims of their best player. Other teams are smart enough to configure a system that entails interchangeability just in case their lead guy goes down.
That's what we do know. Those pieces were there. Now, James Harden, maybe because he's finished second the last couple of years, Skip, maybe, he's getting some, man, James Harden, I didn't think he could play like this. Definitely didn't think he could play like this with CP3. Now he's 31. He's still dishing out 9 assists. He and LeBron are tied with 9. Well, he's third in assists behind LeBron. Right now, I got Harden with a slight lead, maybe 1 vote, 2 votes.
How do you know it's 1 vote or 2 votes, bro? I'll put it like this. If Harden only has 9 assists and LeBron has 9 assists, that's even more impressive for Harden, because Harden is most likely getting less attempts to pass the ball because he's playing alongside CP3.
Over LeBron, but given the percentages in which LeBron is shooting, the second best player supposed to be, Isaiah Thomas, hadn't played set foot on the court yet. He's definitely 1 or 2. Right now, in my book, he'd be number 2.
I agree with that.
He had one last night. He just shot up to the top. Stayed there. Like that.
He said he was shot up to the top and stayed there.
That star on top of the Christmas tree that stood up.
Plummeted in the last.
I mean, he lost the game, Skip, but he still shot 64%.
Okay.
You still climbing that tree, huh?
I did.
I want to shake your hand.
Stop shaking
Thank
hands.
you for the wisdom that
Wait,
you
no,
imparted.
here we
It was
go.
the most brilliant
You are stop,
salvo
Rob
of
Parker.
wisdom we've ever gotten from Rob Parker.
Wait, no, that's a damn lie. Rob Parker has never brought forth any wisdom any day in his life. He probably came to the studio on a short bus the same color as that ugly ass tie he got on, yellow.
On Undisputed, and I appreciate that. In fact, I was wavering. I didn't know if I could really get away with making the Kyrie case, and you have pushed me completely over the Kyrie line. I know it's early, but the impact Kyrie has had on a roster that also had to give up a bunch of pieces to get him on the roster.
That's not the same team from
Yeah,
last
there's
year.
no
Shannon.
Avery
It's not the same
Bradley.
team.
Yeah.
Well, that is very, very true. But Kyrie has also come on a team where Jaylen Brown has developed greatly. I thought that Jaylen Brown was a big disappointment last year. He's impressed me with his improvement coming into this season. And Jason Tatum has been an unbelievable find. That kid has been incredible for them.
Yeah. And by the way, LaShannon Sharp sitting across from me, do you realize that your
Kiss my ass. My name is Shannon James.
Cavaliers, of all the teams in the NBA, have played the most sub-500 teams? They played 19 times.
They feast
sub-500.
on those teams.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
They just feast. It's just,
Feasting on the Celtics, too.
I swear they played the Atlanta Hawks 9 times already, and 7 of them have been in Cleveland.
No.
Every night I look up, you playing the Hawks again?
Yo, Skip and Shannon, they do the best job of trolling each other of any two co-hosts on television. It's not even close.
Well, we played the Bucks 3 times already.
Okay, well, at least that's credible to me. But I keep looking at the whole body of work of LeBron. And listen, seriously, from my heart, LeBron is having a great year. He is.
I think he's having his greatest season. I think this is at least his best season since 2013.
He is. He's almost 33 years of age in his 15th year, and he said, it's been about a week ago, He said, I want to shatter the mold of what older players can do.
Yeah.
He is doing that. He looks great. He's playing great. I take nothing away from that, but I take a lot away from the competition because it
Kyrie
feels,
playing against that same competition.
okay, but it feels like Kyrie isn't LeBron James. You're telling it's the best player on the planet.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
not.
Well, shit, you're not telling me nothing, Skip. I know that Kyrie is not LeBron. What the hell you going to tell me next? That the sun is yellow? I know that. Tell me something I don't know.
And I'm accepting that. The bar is raised up here.
Okay.
But I keep looking at the Cavs schedule and I say, what have you done? They won at Detroit when Detroit was pretty good, looked pretty good, and they
blew them away.
annihilated
Right.
them.
And
And I was like,
Detroit blew the Celtics away. You want to talk about that?
No, we don't want to talk about that. Not now.
Detroit has now fallen to 17-13. They're just like Milwaukee. They're just pretty good. You know, they're a pretty.
Well, the NBA is at a point right now where they have a lot of teams that are pretty much all at the same level. Most of these teams play the same style or try to, which is just drive and kick out for three. And the NBA is at a place where they have a lot of teams with lead players that are anywhere from 23 to 27 years old. And this is why it's so easy for LeBron to intimidate many of these other players, many of these other teams, because they grew up watching him. And he just knows so much more about the game now than they do, and that most of them will ever know. So pretty much the road is laid out for him to at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals, because Washington won't have anything for him in the second round or whenever he plays them, nor will Toronto. And most likely in the first round, he'll make short work of a team like, say, Milwaukee or whoever he faces in the first round. Assuming that Cleveland ends up, say, in the 2 seed, they'll most likely face a team like Detroit or somebody like that in the first round. And they'll make short work of them.
Pretty good Eastern Conference team.
Catch them on a good night, they can beat anybody. Catch them on a bad night, they're getting blown out.
Okay, but in the end, I feel like the NBA season hasn't even started yet, and I can't wait for Christmas Day. This man's going to be at my place. We're going to celebrate Christmas together, as always. And yet, at noon Pacific time, I guess it's 3 o'clock Eastern.
Is Rob Dumbass going to come over there dressed up like Santa Claus?
Eastern time, we've got Kevin Durant head-to-head with LeBron James. It's in Oakland, but no Steph. So is that not going to be a big moment for Kevin Durant, who's on?
I agree. It will be a big moment for Kevin Durant. And even though I wish that Curry were playing, it'll be a great test for the Warriors. It'll be a great test for Durant because it'll be mano a mano. Because KD won't have Steph, but LeBron also will not have Isaiah Thomas. So KD will go a long way in that game in trying to make a push for the MVP. We'll see.
Who's on a little bit of a quiet MVP role here lately.
I agree.
With no Steph. He's putting up MVP caliber numbers over these 5 games without Steph. And now Steph has been ruled out for Christmas Day. So we're going to have Kevin Durant head-to-head with the man he beat head-to-head in the NBA Finals when he shot that three
right in his face.
Yeah,
right in his face.
Remember what we did to him in OKC when they had home court advantage?
Were you on the team?
Yeah, you remember Clap? You remember the cap?
Hell yeah, I was on the team. No, I was on the end of the bench, serving them Gatorade. Don't ask me no dumbass questions. I was there.
Remember the Cavaliers? When you cried, talk about LeBron fouled Kevin Durant. He should have got that call. I remember it like yesterday.
Wait.
And I'm about to call you the FOB.
What?
Full of bull, John.
Full of bullshit?
Yeah.
Wait, are we going back to the Baby Thunder? You mean?
I agree with Skip. You going back to the Baby Thunder. I love all these guys that, Jordan never played anybody in the finals. You know how big of a break LeBron had that OKC was able to beat San Antonio that season in the playoffs? Because we all know San Antonio has his number or had his number up until 2013, Game 6, where LeBron finally snapped out of it. But even in 2014, they wiped the floor with LeBron and the Miami Heat. It was very fortunate in 2012 that OKC was able to beat San Antonio. The same way that San Antonio has LeBron's number, OKC tended to have San Antonio's number. So he was fortunate to face all those little young boys on OKC at the time.
You mean the LeBron's first ring?
Hey, if you don't mind me asking, before he went to Golden State, can you tell the people at home what LeBron used to do to Kevin Durant every year?
Before he went to Golden State?
Yes. Put butts in it.
Okay.
That's why he went to Golden State.
Okay,
Skip, why the hell you think Kevin Durant took his anorexic looking ass to Golden State? Because LeBron had a size 14 footprint on his ass. I told him, I said, baby, you watch how his ass run to Golden State like a little hoe. That's why he going out there. You know, too short and rest of them pimps out there for his whole ass.
We're talking about now, and there's no step.
Last Christmas Day, what happened?
A robbery happened.
Oh, don't do
It was a
that.
complete.
Don't do that, Skip. You know what happened last Christmas. LeBron came out the sky just like Santa Claus. Dunked it right on the head.
Complete robbery.
Don't
I
do
told
that.
you it was.
Don't do that.
And he jinxed me, and he's probably going to jinx me again because I've never watched a game with Rob Parker that didn't get jinxed.
Is that right?
Whenever I wanted, I lost.
You
so
know
I
he's
kind of
Rob.
conceded Christmas Day. Well, I'm
He bad
So
enough.
should I not come over on
I don't
Christmas?
know. I'm thinking
Hey, just give him a plate and send him on his way, Skip.
maybe
Skip, how come you never invite me over for Christmas? You scared your woman gonna see all this sexual chocolate? I'm gonna take off my blazer. I look just like a Godiva bar. I guarantee you she won't want to bite.
maybe you should come and watch the next game.
The next
How about-
game, not the big
I
game.
forget. I think it's who is it?
I'm not a
Kyrie
jinx.
against somebody.
I'm a lucky charm.
You ain't no lucky charm. If you hadn't been watching the game last year against Atlanta, they'd have won the game.
No, is that what it was?
Yeah, you start. They knew
So
you
for
watch
the
it.
Celtics game, so the Cavs game.
Yeah, then you jinx Kyrie, but that's okay.
But here's the thing. I mean, you're right. I mean, there are some times that it's like Peyton Manning. There are a lot of years that Peyton Manning could have won the MVP, but you can't. They're like, well, you can't. Why you can't? They gave it to Gretzky 9 straight years, Skip. They used to give it to Bonds because why? He was the best player.
Well, and I've already stated this. LeBron James is the Peyton Manning of basketball. And in more ways than one. He's extremely dominant during the regular season, but oftentimes in the big moment, particularly in the final round, he's had a meltdown. I believe that he has transcended past that mental barrier that he had prior to beating Golden State. But now, since then, I believe that mentally he's just a different player now. He's just on a far higher level.
He was.
And Bonds won it 7 times, which is unbelievable.
And Terry Pendleton, the year Terry Pendleton won, I think it was 93.
No, I think it was 92 when Terry Pendleton beat him out. Or maybe it was 91. Matter of fact, I think it was 91, but you brothers could look that up, where Terry Pendleton won the MVP award. 91, 92, one of them years. But 93, I believe, was Bonds' first year in San Francisco, and he won the MVP that year. But if I remember correctly, I think that it was, maybe it was 92. Because I believe it was Barry's last year in Pittsburgh when Terry Pendleton got the MVP award. One of them years, though. But you brothers can look that up. Terry Pendleton was, I believe, third baseman for the Atlanta Braves, and he got the MVP one of those years, and Barry probably should have got it. But Terry was great that year also.
He could have won it that game. He finished second. He finished second to Jeff Kent. So really, he got 7. He really should have like 9 or 10. But if he's the best player, having the best year, give it to him.
No, but this is, we've seen it in the NBA with Jordan. I mean, right? Barkley won.
Well, they robbed Shaq. Steve Nash got Shaq
Second one
MVP.
was a robbery. It was. He should have won. Shaq.
Well, 05, Steve Nash deserved it. So Shaq claimed that he deserved it in 06. So, I mean, look, of course, the Kobe Bryant fans believe that Kobe deserved it in 06. But Kobe was not going to get it, averaging 35 on 45% from the field, playing on a 500 team. But I will say this. If Russell Westbrook deserved the MVP last year, then Kobe Bryant should have got the MVP in 06 for being on a team that was barely above 500 and just having a season where he broke the record for usage rate and shot jacking. If Russell Westbrook can get the MVP, then Kobe Bryant should have got it, if that's the case.
Shaq should have won. I'll give Steve Nash the first one, but
Yeah.
not the second one.
Yeah, he won
And
back-to-back.
To sum up Kyrie, I can't give you the numbers. The numbers don't stack up to LeBron or James or even to Kevin Durant because he's 24,
Or Giannis.
3 rebounds. Or Giannis, that's a good point. 3 rebounds, 5 assists.
Well, that's why I said I had Kyrie behind James Harden, LeBron James, and Giannis. That's why I said that.
It's just not good enough. But if you watch Kyrie, the impact he's having on this team, they were at Indiana. I know Indiana isn't great. They're another one of those mediocre Eastern Conference teams. But late in that game, he made 3 threes in the last 2 minutes of that game, which they came back and stole from
Bogdanovich.
Literally stole the game. And I will give Skip this. With Kyrie, you cannot really judge his impact based off of his numbers because he's building as the season goes along. But he has been incredible in clutch moments. What you expect that from Kyrie? Kyrie has that clutch gene, as Skip Bayless calls it.
Donovan, all he has to do is hold on to the ball,
Just
make them foul you, go to the free throw line, and you win.
Make free throws, right.
Okay.
I couldn't believe that shit, Skip. I'm sitting there watching it in my drawers, getting ready to go take a shower. And this motherfucker going to throw the ball away. I said, goddamn. We trying to catch Boston and you throwing the ball away. I turned the TV off and went in the shower, Skip.
He throw the ball over there, take it.
Kyrie is having impact. They're 2.5 games up on the Cavs. It's early, but that I would lean in that direction, and we did not talk about this.
No, and the other thing, too, is the Hayward. You know, they constructed that team.
They did.
And for him to get hurt in the first game and not to just collapse, Kyrie could have said, oh, my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
No, but Kyrie wasn't going to do that because Kyrie never looked at Hayward as the main person on the team. He looked at Hayward as being a supplementary piece to him. So even though Kyrie was clearly traumatized when that first happened, as anybody would be, to see something like that, he was able to collect himself even during the game. And after a period of quote-unquote proverbial mourning, they were able to rebound. And that's what life is about. You got to be able to stand up and move forward. And that's what he did. So
Yeah. This is going to be terrible, and the Celtics are going to be bad. And what did they do?
That's why
they ran off 14 straight.
Well, he better be named. Well, he'll get named.
I think it was 16 straight.
Get named the starter. Bron gonna want to go to the other side, to the West.
Well, it will be. Doesn't LeBron have
Well,
the option to choose?
No. The starter will be named. I believe Kyrie will be named the Eastern Conference starter. Yeah. But then you get to pick.
You get to pick the guys.
You get to pick the reserves after that. That's what they should be televised. If I'm LeBron, I'm going.
So you know what? If I'm Kyrie, I'll just say to the other players, freeze LeBron out. Don't throw the ball to him.
You know what happened?
Go ahead and do that shit, Rob. You wait till we go to commercial. I'm gonna choke your ass up with that tie.
What happened? What happened to a guy that did that in the All-Star game? A guy's rookie year. What happened after that?
Didn't work out.
Yeah. The 92, the dream team.
I know.
That was Isaiah.
Because you know good well Isaiah was supposed to be on that team.
But it wasn't. You know what was wrong?
Yeah, well, you know what? That's why Isaiah Thomas is still mad at Jordan to this day. See, those guys, they never thought that Jordan was going to be what he became. So, Isaiah Thomas, the thing with Isaiah Thomas and Jordan, that there's a lot of levels to that issue. But a lot of that was based off of Isaiah Thomas's jealousy that Jordan was playing in Chicago, and Isaiah Thomas wanted to be the guy to build that team and win that first championship for his home city, and it never happened. Not only did it not happen, but the way that the dynamics set it up, you had a guy like Michael Jordan who was always extremely cocky and arrogant. It turned off a lot of the veterans in the East because Jordan was coming into the league with a very, very cocky style of play, a very swag-ridden style of play. And when I say swag-ridden, meaning Jordan was one of the first guys to really do a lot of extravagant moves during games that many of the established players felt like were not necessary. You know, going in for dunks and spreading his legs and double pumps and cradles and wind-ups on breakaways. And a lot of the established players were a little bit upset by that, and that's why they hatched that plan to freeze him out, especially the fact that he had his own sneaker deal. He was doing things he was bringing things into the NBA that had never been brought in before in regards to having his own sweatsuit line and his own sneaker line and things like that. Guy was in the slam dunk contest with 2 chains on. So they decided that they were going to, freeze him out. That was Isaiah Thomas and George Gervin and allegedly Magic Johnson. But Magic said he was not involved because he played on the other team. So it was his job to stop Jordan from scoring. But Jordan did not forget that. So that's basically what that issue was with Isaiah Thomas and Jordan. And then beyond that, not only was Isaiah Thomas unable to be the lead member of the Chicago Bulls and bring a championship to his home city, which he so desperately wanted, he actually became the most prominent player on another team in the Midwest that became the biggest antagonist for Chicago. So that also added to the level of vitriol between the two, the level of enmity between the two. And Jordan was not the only guy who did not want to play with Isaiah Thomas on that dream team. Magic Johnson didn't. Larry Bird didn't. None of them did. None of them. Scottie Pippen, Barkley, they all hated the so-called bad boys. But Jordan's the guy who takes the fall for it because he was the lead player on the Chicago Bulls. the team that the Pistons had their most, had their most intense rivalry with during the late 80s.
Wrong though is that Bird was a part of that too, and Isaiah
are?
got all the blame.
Yeah.
But Bird, it was Bird and Isaiah who came up with it.
If you remember, Bird, Parrish, and McHale and them, they didn't shake Isaiah and them hand when they beat them and walked off the court. They walked off the court, didn't shake nobody's hand.
That's true. That's a fact. That is a fact. In Game 6 in 1988 Eastern Conference Finals, the Celtics also walked off the court. But what made what the Pistons did to the Bulls look worse than what Boston did was when Boston walked off the court, they didn't pass by the Detroit Piston bench. That's why people don't talk about it. It wasn't like it wasn't like people are just extra picking on the Detroit Pistons. What made what the Detroit Pistons did look even worse was that they walked right by the Bulls bench and Isaiah Thomas put his head down, looked like a fucking skunk walking by the Bulls bench. And this was after the previous 3 seasons when the Bulls would lose, Jordan would walk over to the Pistons bench and shake all their hands. So that's what, man. Then on top of that, NBC had plans for Jordan and for that team to be the spotlight team for, that time while on NBC, and they didn't want to have to deal with the image of the Detroit Pistons. Plus, the NBA did not want to have to deal with that imagery of a thuggish type of team. So all those things wrapped up in one package to form a confederacy against Isaiah Thomas, which is why he's one of the least beloved all-time great players ever. But, it is what it is. Everybody cannot be beloved.
That is a
But
fact.
they blistered Isaiah because he didn't shake Jordan hand.
That is
Which
true.
means the NBA's been petty for a very
A
long time.
long time.
Well, more than petty. Back in that time period, the guys wasn't petty. They wasn't going on social media. They were taking it out on each other on the court.
Like Petty Riley, he been a part of it. That's what we call Pat Riley.
Petty Riley.
No blasphemy for that. It's Tom Brady.
But anyway, that's the issue with LeBron James and his MVP chances. I think that he's having the best season of any player, but whether or not he'll get the MVP, I doubt it. I think that they're going to end up giving it to Harden, especially if he continues on the path that he's on right now and if he stays healthy. But anyway, peace.